Hi everybody, it's Ms. Ayers. This video is about preparing the first draft of your research paper. So hold on to your socks. This is going to be really exciting. Not quite DOL exciting, but still pretty exciting. Okay, so let's talk about what you are required to have for your first draft. Basically, you need to have the body of your paper. So, the whole research section of the paper you need to have. You also need to have your works cited page. That's going to be really important. And remember, your works cited page is basically your bibliography. It's all the works you cite within your paper. Also important is note that your introduction and conclusion are not required on the first draft. Obviously, they'll be required on the final draft, but for this draft, you don't have to have them. So let's talk about the body of your research paper, which should be most of your work on your first draft. A huge portion of the job will be citing the sources of your research. And not citing sources is the fastest, easiest way to flunk your research paper. So if your goal is to fail the paper and you don't want to waste a lot of time doing it, then I would suggest not citing any sources. If, however, you would like to pass this paper and maybe even do well on it, you're going to need to do this very, very well. So let's pay attention. In your research paper body, you will be giving a lot of parenthetical citations. Let me explain what those are. They are sources given in parentheses after the information. And so, parentheses are these little things. Okay, parenthetical citations are not to be given only at the end of a body paragraph. They should appear throughout a paragraph. Basically, you should provide a citation every time you're giving information that didn't come from you, information that instead came from one of your sources. Parenthetical citations are identified by the first element on the works cited page. So out of all the information you have to give on each source of the works cited page, what appears in the parenthetical citation should be the thing that comes first on the works cited page. Consequently, having your works cited page in alphabetical order is a must. That's why I've been on your case through all the drafts of your bibliography to have your sources alphabetized. So everything I've been talking about here with these parenthetical citations, that's the stuff you need to avoid getting an F on the first draft of your research paper. Have parenthetical citations throughout the body of your research paper, in every body paragraph, usually multiple times. So maybe this sounds straightforward enough, but let's see how it plays out in a real example. So what I have here is a screenshot of a real paper from one of my students several years ago. This is an AP research paper. If you take a look at just the image I have of this student's paper, you will probably notice that he's cited a couple sources here. He cited a source from Krieger on page 276 and Hagopian on page 272. So I've found these parenthetical citations, these citations in parentheses after he's presented information. So what I'm going to do now is turn to this kid's works cited page and see how well they match up. Here I have a screenshot of his works cited page. So the sources I found within the text were sources from Krieger and Hagopian. So when I read your research paper and I see a source cited inside the paper in parentheses, I'm going to flip to the works cited page and look for it there. That's why alphabetical order is really important. And so here I see, oh yeah, he had Krieger first, and there's Krieger, and then he also had Hagopian, there's that guy. And that's right here is where all this information is if I want to verify what he has cited within his paper. Now, it gets a little bit goofy when you have multiple consecutive citations from the same source. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so here's a picture of a paragraph from a paper a student wrote last year. And in his paragraph, he cites from the same source multiple times in a row. So if you take a look, the first time he cites this source, his source is property management is the name of the article, and he cites paragraph 1. It's an electronic source, so he doesn't have page numbers, so he cites paragraph numbers. So remember, you can do that too if you don't have page numbers because you have an electronic source, which most of you will have. Then the next statistic or bit of information he cites is from that same article. Since he hasn't switched sources, he no longer has to include that first element, property management, the first element from the Works Cited page. He just gives the paragraph number. And then the next bit of information he cites is from the same article, and he cites the next paragraph number. So when you have multiple citations in a row that come from the same source, you don't have to keep repeating the author name or the article name. You can just give the page number if it's a print source, or more likely the paragraph number if it's an electronic source. Of course, if you're going to switch sources and cite from a new source, then you need to cite that first element from the Works Cited page again when you give the page number or the paragraph number. As I record this video, I can already anticipate some anxious questions. Guys, we're not going to freak out. Let me try to head some of these off. I can hear somebody asking, well, do I cite the author name or the article name in the parentheses in my paper? You cite whichever one you have as the first element on your Works Cited page. So if it's a signed article, an article with an author, then it's the author's name that you give, the author's last name. If it's an unsigned article and your first element is the title of the article, then that's what you give, the title. Another likely question is, when do I cite page numbers in the paper and when do I cite paragraph numbers next to the source name? And so, it seems like sometimes you do one, sometimes you do the other. The answer to that question is, if it's a print source, then you cite the page numbers. So if it's a book or a magazine that you have a hard copy of, not a printout, but like the print version of the magazine, you cite page numbers. For most of you, it's not going to be print sources. If it's an electronic source, an internet source, a database source, you cite the paragraph numbers. So for most of us, it's going to be electronic sources with paragraph numbers. I know some of you are citing unsigned articles that have the same title, like the subject name. Well, how do I cite sources when the sources have the same name? How do I cite which one goes to which source on the Works Cited page? In that case, inside the parentheses, you cite the first and the second element before the paragraph number or the page number. So you have something like Tilly Olson, in quotation marks because it's an article, Slate Magazine, paragraph 2, if you have two sources or more that are called Tilly Olson. So that's how you do that. And your other option, if watching a video just isn't the best way for you to learn this, is consult page 4 of that green research packet that I gave you when we introduced the unit. That walks you through all those steps in writing. And if you don't have that packet for some reason, you can find it on the portal. And finally, as we've talked about at length in class, you want to organize by categories, not by sources. So it'd be a real mistake if in each paragraph all the information came from the same source. That would tell me you were organizing by sources. You weren't really thinking about your ideas for organizing. So I should expect to see multiple citations from multiple sources within most paragraphs. Okay, guys, I think that covers about everything. Good luck with your first drafts. It's only worth 10 points, and we'll see how they turn out.